been a while, but enough of that. I I was been on the internet for so long that I've kind of developed a network of people that I like to watch or people I subscribe to on YouTube or some other website. And one of these people is Spoonie, or the Spoonie one. And if you don't know who he is a video game slash comic slash movie reviewer who is better known for his series called Counter Monkey. And what that is a large collection of videos that are dedicated to him sharing his role-playing experiences with Dungeons and Dragons, Shadowrun, and others that that he's done. And I'm just gonna take a crack at that kind of video this time around because I'm always interested in trying new things, and I want to get my subscriber count way up there. And this seems like a good way to do it. I know you have to start somewhere with a new series. I'm not quite sure what this is going to be called if I decide to continue it at all. But I'm open to suggestions if anyone wants to give any advice on what this should be called. Anyway, on to the story. Oh, this I was inspired by Spoonie, uh, little Counter Monkey videos to do Dungeons and Dragons with my family, and he's kind of harped on family role playing as being somewhat stupid, but I take my games very seriously. Basically, since I brought up the idea and hardly anyone wanted to do it at first, I had to be the DM. And so I ordered a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons shit. All of it's 4th edition. And I gotta tell you about 4th edition. I really don't like it. And this is coming from a guy who was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons by the 4th edition. I don't like the spells specifically. They really suck, and they're treated as powers. It's ridiculous. You should a wizard. The fun of being a wizard is taken away just by making those things powers and getting like 1 or 2 each level, or at certain levels actually, because you just go through levels without getting any. That's really ridiculous. What what prevents a wizard from getting new spells at each level? And speaking of that kind of thing, the wizard is supposed to be a fucking badass at higher levels. Because the higher you get when you're a wizard, the more powerful you become. But what's really stupid is that in 4th edition, you get the wizard gets more powerful spells at higher levels. And I know that happened that I through research I knew that happened before, but it just doesn't feel right. The but I do applaud the the D&D writers, creators, or editors, or whoever made 4th edition for the separation of spells into spells and rituals. It really It really helped identify which spells you could not use in combat and which spells you couldn't use out of combat. Instead of just having it in the casting time. I I've had a number of problems with older editions too, but they have not really been as problematic as 4th edition. You can get over the hurdles much more easily in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, I'll talk about my homebrew system for right now. I've basically made a mix of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and 4th edition. I've I've combined the feats, the spells. I kind of like the spells in 4th edition, but they're not really. They pale in comparison to the other one. Basically, what I do with wizards is I'm trying to make the wizard very appealing to my players. So I'm gonna have the wizard. I've created a wizard character, and this is gonna be true for all wizard characters, even if they're player characters. That the wizard gets both 4th edition spells and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons spells when they would get them at that point in those versions. So if a wizard would get like sleep and prismatic spray or something at 10th level, and color spray at 10th level in AD&D and 4th edition respectively, I would combine those that you got. And that does seem overpowered to some of you, but I just really need the wizard to be very appealing. And he wasn't very powerful because of his spells. Because the wizard I made had a bunch of artifacts that were also implements. He was an orb and a staff mage who had certain rings on each of his hands. What these rings did was they held objects in his square. So if his hand was full, on the ring would hold the object like right here, and it would levitate and follow his finger. And he would still technically be using it. And this one of those artifacts that I made up on the fly was a tweaked version of the Orb of Inevitable Continuance. It's that implement is, I found it in the 4th edition player's handbook, and it sucked. It basically extended the turn limit for a couple spells. Well, for one actually, because it was a daily power. For one spell by one turn, and that sucked. So what I did was I made a property of the orb that all spells that would be due to expire don't expire until the end of the encounter. And that was probably a overpowered way to do things, but in hindsight, I probably should have made it like a encounter or maybe an at will power. But I wanted it to be in effect constantly. And it would have to, and I wanted it to apply to all his spells, so that the longer you stayed in combat with this guy, the more peril you were in. And basically it worked out like that. Because one of my PCs got into a fight with the dragon. Yes, dragon, but before I tell you about that, I have to tell you about what I did with my characters. I broke the cardinal law of just about every high level D&D game while we were at very low levels. That was, never make your players gods. And I did this for a very good reason. I broke this law because my games are incredibly high level, and the only way that they could survive or even do enough damage to these creatures, because I was basically throwing glitches at my players when they were at 4th level. And I knew right away that I had made a mistake, so I had my wizard guy pull a Deus Ex Machina right out of his ass, because I had him have a spell ready that would teleport a phylactery of the lead lich into his hands. But this spell would only work if he knew where the phylactery was. And this guy... Anyway, I knew that they were in trouble, so that's why I did that. And the combat ended abruptly. But if they had looked at the Lich's stats, they would have known that they were in trouble. And that they would have died even with my wizard's help. Because this wizard was basically at the highest level you could get, but he wasn't quite a god. Because of the mechanism by which I had made them gods. And it was fruits that changed locations, shape, size, and color. No, not color. What am I thinking? It was an incredibly rare fruit. I think that there were only like 10 in the world. Because it was so fucking rare. And it was so rare that hardly anybody knew about it. But its existence, it was kept a closely guarded secret because of what it could do. It could make anybody a god. Even someone who's not a player character. And basically I had them roll a d4 to see how many times they could get the usage, to see how many times they could use it. Because even though this fruit could make anybody a god, it is extremely revolting. And its flavor is so bad that you have to make a fortitude save. And basically what the only player at the time who wanted to try the fruit did was he rolled a d4 and he got a 2. And the first try, he failed to save and he vomited it up. The second time, he got it. And I think it was a crit, so I gave him the maximum levels that you would get by eating this fruit, which is 5 divine levels. And this This made him at level 9 when combining his Ranger level 4 and his Divine level 5. And so, and this also gave him, I basically made a template that all gods share. And they have a ranged attack, a way to travel very quickly, like flying. This way to travel had flying, running really fast, or more specifically, walking into like a blurry fashion, so fucking fast, and swimming really fast. And this, I had 2 ranged attacks. What am I talking about? Because this was like basically like a God Bolt and uh, I think it was something to do with extend. No, if you if the god is hit or missed by 2 consecutive hits, by 2 consecutive range attacks, they make a ranged attack against of the all the people who tried to attack them. And yeah, this template was applicable to every single god in every single pantheon that I had at the time. So this, by now, well, before this, what this player character had changed his race on me from human to dragonborn because he liked the sound of it and he thought it looked cool. And I basically let him without making a new character because all I had to do was change the stats, and this was a paper that was a very special piece of paper that really, when you erase things from it, it really shows. So I tried to minimize the damage on this piece of paper. So basically he collapses unconscious for 5 days because you get to be unconscious for each level for a day for each level that you gain. And he wakes up in S's room. And I have to explain something about S. S is my personal character. He's like my Mary Sue. But I'm only going to throw him at my characters when they've multi-classed and they have reached a level of deityhood to take him. But right now, he's really just not doing much. He's basically all having his own business to take care of. And this... Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah. Broke the card. I lost myself. This is what happens when I just go off on a rant. I'll rewind the video and see if I can find where I left off first. So this is going to be a pause point. Hope you're all ready for it. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, and I figured out where I left off. So this player character got into a fight with a dragon, and this PC was my littlest brother, and basically he made a character named Kratos, and he wanted, yes, and he wanted to that this character to be pretty much exactly like Kratos at first, but recently he's tried to make it more like Legolas, because he's a ranger, and Legolas is pretty much like a ranger, maybe slash druid or something. And anyway, this PC was so stupid he wanted to fight a dragon. And so, and he refused to play until he fought a dragon. So I'm like, okay, okay. So I'm thinking, how can I set this up? He wants to fight a dragon, and these things are badass. Even though he's a god, this dragon can fucking take him. So I wanted to teach him a lesson. Eventually, that's what I brought down to. I wanted to teach him a lesson in humility, basically. You don't fuck with dragons. You don't. So what I did was this guy, and I made it so in order to advance in God level, you had to have at least one temple. And with each day of worship, you would get one special type of experience point. And if you got 10 of those, you would increase in level. Then it would be 20 and 30 and 40, to the point where, oh, never mind. He had a message board in his temple. And I put on this message board that a trading company was running into a dragon on their route, and it was extremely perilous to their business, because this route is basically the only way to the city that I based the entire campaign in. And even though this way, even though this city had like 4 gates, an east, south, north, and west gate, there was really only one major trading route, and it was the closest way to the city. Because if they went another way, then they would have to trek like 3 times as long. But anyway, I'm rambling. He's like, yes, I can fight a dragon. And so we get to the dragon encounter, and immediately things don't go his way, because he was expecting the dragon to land, and that did not happen. At least at first. Because this dragon I made sure of it that the way that a dragon of this type would behave. So basically, it was flying circles around in the sky, just breath weaponing and throwing lightning bolts down at this player character. And even though he regenerated like 10 hit points each round, well, each of his rounds, he was taking a lot of damage. So, before this happened, he had gotten a seeing stone. Well, basically like a communications rock, actually. It's kind of like our telephones, but you just say a password and you speak into your rock, and the connected rock has, if there's nobody around, it will record the message. And if there is someone around, it will play the message as it's being said. And the wizard was definitely around, because it was basically like sunset. And so he, it took a few turns, but it, and this dragon had almost gotten my Kratos bloodied. But once my wizard arrived, he really brought down the thunder. Basically, my PC's character's turn came, and he used one of his domain powers, well, his domain spell, which is Control Wind. And we both fudged it for the sake of the encounter, so that the wind would be strong enough to force the dragon down onto the ground. And it took falling damage. That was its first real hit. Aside from Kratos' alter-size salient divine ability to any fucking breath weapon the dragon. And didn't really do much, though. Anyway, the wizard has a special ability that I included in his creation. Basically, he was the distant son of my S ability was downright outlandishly fucking powerful. Now that I think about it, because basically it said that for every enhancement bonus that you get, like +6, you would also get a 6 added onto the critical hit range with a maximum of 18. So basically what this meant was this wizard could land critical hits if he rolled a 3 on the d20 or up. And 4th edition has some... I kept the critical damage on these implements because it seemed really cool. But basically, when the wizard's turn came around, he busted out the prismatic spray and fucking bushwhacked the dragon with 100 hit points of damage. Then the dragon's turn came around, and it didn't do much. It just fucking threw a spell at my wizard, and it didn't hit. Then my PC's turn came around. And then he did something sadistic. He trapped the dragon in between a wall of blades. I'm like, fuck. I'm basically being humiliated because I wanted to teach my PC a lesson. And the reason why the wizard was near the rock was because we had a roll. Above 10 on the d20, he was near the rock. And below 10, he was at his office, as town office. And it rolled a 14. So this wizard did an obscene amount of damage each round. And he didn't miss once, which is just fucking abominable. The dragon's throwing its magic and breath weapons at the party, but it's not doing much. They're really whittling it down. Well, my PC is whittling it down, but my wizard is fucking just destroying it. So, I wanted to, after the encounter, because they basically just fucked up this dragon, fucking ended it. And after the encounter, I wanted to throw another one at them. But this time there would be like 2 or 3. So I basically leave the decisions up to the dice in my games. Above 10, it's a yes. Below 10, it's a no. And so I rolled to see if any other dragons were coming. And it ended up like a 7. It was a no. No more dragons were coming. I'm like, oh, fuck. Well, you're victorious. And they get their for like 14,000 XPs. Because this dragon was basically it's supposed to be really tough, but not really. It wasn't really a challenge to them. And another thing about XP, I basically give the listed amount of XP to each party member if they can handle it. And if they can't, like if they're already maxed XP, they don't get it unless they take another class. And so that was a really brutal lesson to me that an overpowered game needs overpowered monsters. And I guess I'm going to stop it here. And it's reaching a stopping point anyway. So I'll come back with more of my homebrew system. Yeah, because I want to share this shit. Because I think I've got a really good story coming on. And yeah, I think you're in for a treat in my storytelling ability. Because I'm really good at doing this shit. Anyway, thanks.